The last sunset on Varela. The sky above Varela turned gold as the twin suns began to set. Soft clouds floated like painted silk, glowing with colors never seen on Earth. The air smelled of warm leaves and distant rivers. It was peaceful, but something was about to change forever. Princess Lysira stood alone at the highest point of her crystal palace. Her white hair moved gently in the breeze. She didn't blink as she stared at the horizon. Her eyes, bright like starlight, were focused on one thing, a fireball falling from the sky. It wasn't a star. It was a ship, or what was left of one. Her guards shouted from below, "Your Highness, a human vessel is crashing in the north." She said nothing. She already knew. For 1,000 years, no human had entered Varela's sacred skies. And none had ever survived the drop through its living storm clouds. But something about this one felt different. The crash shook the ground. Birds flew into the sky, and the golden forest lit up as if in pain. Lysira closed her eyes and took a slow breath. The feeling in her chest wasn't fear. It was curiosity. Hours passed. The palace was in panic. Council members demanded that the wreck be destroyed, but Lysira gave no order. "It is not our way," she said softly. "We do not kill the fallen." But she didn't tell them her real reason. Deep in her heart, she had felt something strange when the ship fell. A pulse, a quiet calling, as if something in that burning metal was tied to her soul. That night when the world slept, she left the palace alone. She wore a dark cloak and used an old path that no longer showed on maps. Her steps were silent as the wind, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. She reached the crash site at midnight. Broken trees lay around the smoldering wreck. Silver metal was twisted and scorched. But then she saw it. Movement. A hand. Beneath the ruined hull, a human man was breathing. His name was Jace. He was young, maybe in his late 20s. His body was bruised, his suit torn. Blood ran down the side of his face. And yet, he was alive. Lysira kneeled beside him, afraid to touch. She had seen many humans from a distance during her time as ruler, but never this close, and never like this, so fragile, so real. His eyes opened slowly. They were dull at first, but then he saw her. "Am I dead?" he whispered. Lysira shook her head. "No, not yet." He smiled. "Then I'm dreaming." "No," she said again. "You're not." Jace passed out again. Lysira looked around. She knew it was dangerous. If anyone saw her helping him, the council would be furious. The law was clear. No human could step on Varelan soil. And yet, she could not leave him here to die. She touched his face gently. The moment her skin met his, something lit up around them. A soft blue glow. The prophecy stone around her neck pulsed with light. Her breath caught in her throat. It had never done that before, not in 1,000 years. She looked at Jace. Who was this man? She carried him back with the help of an old beast that once guarded her as a child. The creature obeyed her silently, sensing the importance of the moment. Deep inside the palace, she placed Jace in a hidden chamber filled with healing light. She sat beside him for hours, watching his chest rise and fall. When morning came, he opened his eyes again. "You're the one who saved me?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "Why?" She looked down. "I don't know yet." Outside, the council gathered. Whispers of the crash spread like fire. Some believed a dark omen had fallen. Others thought it was a test from the stars. But none guessed the truth, that an immortal princess had broken the first law of her people, for a stranger. And in the forest, at the crash site, a scout found something strange. The dirt where Jace had fallen was glowing. And in the glow, the old symbols of a forgotten prophecy had begun to form again. A warning, a bond, a path that could never be undone. The human who shouldn't have lived The chamber was dark, lit only by the soft blue glow of ancient healing crystals. The air hummed with quiet energy, and there, on a floating bed of vines and light, the human still breathed. Princess Lysira stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, her eyes fixed on him. She hadn't slept. She hadn't even blinked for what felt like hours. He was still alive. But he shouldn't be. No one had ever survived a crash from outside Varella's orbit. The sky itself rejected outsiders. The clouds were alive, trained to burn foreign ships on sight. Her people believed this was protection, a sacred filter to keep the weak away, but now a human was here, and he was healing. Lysira turned away, her white cloak trailing behind her like a shadow of light. She whispered a command, and the chamber doors sealed with ancient force. Only she could enter. No one could know. Not yet. Outside, the palace. Tension was growing. Rumors of the falling star had reached the crystal markets and silver towers. Some said it was a weapon. Others, a curse. One elder even claimed it was the return of the Marked One, an old myth that had been erased from their books. High Counselor Trivak, a sharp-eyed elder with a twisted spine, narrowed his focus on the matter. He had ruled beside Lysira for 3 centuries, but trust was never part of their bond. He stood in the Hall of Echoes, watching a hologram of the crash site. "Scan again," he ordered. The watcher beside him obeyed. Lines of glowing symbols ran across the screen. Suddenly, one section pulsed red. This symbol," the watcher said, voice shaking. It appeared only once before. During the War of Hearts. During the prophecy of the lost immortal. Travik's fingers curled around his staff. Impossible, the prophecy was burned, the soul bond was erased. But deep inside he felt it too. Something had returned. Meanwhile, Jace groaned as he opened his eyes for the second time. The ceiling above him shimmered like liquid starlight. He tried to sit up, but his body screamed in pain. A soft voice stopped him. "Don't move." He turned his head. She was there again. The woman. No, not a woman. Something more. Her skin still glowed faintly in the dim light. Her hair flowed like it was alive. "You," he whispered. "I'm not dreaming." She shook her head. "No. And you shouldn't be alive." He gave a weak smile. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." Lysira tilted her head. She didn't understand the joke. Humans were strange, she thought, but there was something in his eyes. Something she hadn't seen in hundreds of years. Something raw. Something real. "What's your name?" she asked. Jace McCallan. Flight engineer, human exploration fleet. At least, I was. And why were you near Varela? He closed his eyes. Crash. Emergency jump. I was trying to save my crew. Didn't think I'd survive. He looked up at her. Why? Did you save me? Lysira hesitated. Because I dreamed of you before you ever fell. Because the stars whispered your name when I was a child. Because the moment you touched the ground, my heart started beating differently. But she only said, I don't know yet. Outside, the council held secret meetings. Some feared an invasion. Others believed Lysira was hiding something. Trivak sent scouts to watch her every move. One night they followed her through the quiet halls of the palace. They saw her disappear behind sealed doors. Doors only opened by her voice. What was inside they did not know. But the air around the chamber felt heavy as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Jace began to heal quickly, too quickly. Even Lysira noticed. The crystals amplified his recovery. Yes, but something deeper was at play. His skin accepted the energy like it belonged. His body adjusted to the atmosphere. Even the vines wrapped around him gently, as if they recognized him. Your body is changing, she told him one evening. That's not creepy at all, he muttered. But she was serious. I've seen nothing like it. She took his hand. It was warm, human, flawed. But when their fingers touched, the room trembled. The prophecy stone around her neck burst with white light. The light formed a circle around them, a bond, a sacred mark. Lysira stumbled back. Jace sat up, confused. What was that? She couldn't speak. The air was too heavy. Her chest felt tight. She had broken the law of her people. She had touched a human soul. And now, the universe had noticed. Far above them, in the darkest part of space, an ancient satellite came alive. It had not moved for centuries. Now it turned. Its red eye opened, and it sent a message across the stars. The soul link has been found. Whispers of forbidden love. The moonlight fell like silver threads across the hidden chamber, wrapping the human and the princess in a strange, sacred quiet. Jace was asleep again, breathing steady. Lysira stood beside him, watching him like someone watches a fading dream, half afraid it would vanish, half afraid it would stay forever. Her hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from feeling something she thought she had buried centuries ago. Love. The word itself was dangerous. On Varela, immortal beings were taught to avoid deep bonds. Love with mortals? Forbidden. Fatal. History told of one immortal who dared to love a human and lost her soul in the fire of it, but Lysira couldn't ignore it anymore. When she was near Jace, the world felt different, softer, louder, more alive. She reached toward his face, then stopped just short. "What are you doing to me?" she whispered. High Counselor Trevak stood in the dark council tower, staring at the old sealed texts. They were forbidden, locked behind layers of code and spirit. But Trevak had never been one to follow rules when power was at stake. His fingers hovered over the runes, his breath shallow. "The soul link," he muttered. The prophecy was real. He found the words he feared most. If an immortal links souls with a human, the cost will be eternal. Her life becomes his. Her power fades. Her people fall. His heart burned with rage. Lysira was already too powerful, too beloved. If she created the soul link, she could change everything. She could shift the balance between mortals and immortals. "I must end this before it's too late," he said, eyes glowing cold. Inside the secret chamber, Jace finally opened his eyes. "You're still here," he said with a tired smile. "I never left," Lysira replied. He sat up slowly. The pain in his body had become a dull memory now. "I've been thinking, why hide me? You don't even know me." Lysira didn't answer at first. Then softly she said, "I dreamt of you. Long before you fell." Jace blinked. "What?" "When I was young, I saw you. In visions. Standing. In fire. Holding my hand. And I was crying." She paused. "But not from pain. From love." Jace didn't speak. His throat felt tight. There was something strange about her presence, something old and infinite but warm, familiar. "Maybe it wasn't just a dream," he said. "Maybe we were meant to meet." Their eyes locked, and the air between them shimmered again. Not just energy. A pull. A connection older than reason. That night, Lysira walked alone to the Temple of Memory, a hidden ruin deep beneath the palace. The priests had abandoned it long ago. They feared the ancient spirits that whispered from the stones. But she needed answers. She lit the old torches with a flick of her fingers. The flame cast long shadows across the walls, where carvings of forgotten love stories stretched into the dark. In the center, a spirit stirred. A voice, soft like falling ash, echoed in the chamber. "You have touched the soul of a mortal." Lysira stepped forward. "Tell me the cost." The spirit's face emerged, a mask of sorrow and beauty. "You will feel love deeper than your people can bear. But you will also feel pain no heart should carry. You may live one night as one. But when the sun rises, one of you will fade forever." Lysira's breath shook. Is there any other path? Only one, the spirit said. You walk away now, and forget him. Forever. But she couldn't. She wouldn't. Not now. The next day, Trevak confronted her. He stood in the throne room, his voice sharp and cold. You're hiding something, Your Highness. I'm hiding many things, she said calmly. Don't play games, Trevak snapped. You've broken the law. You've made contact with the human. The guards tensed. Lysira stood tall. He is not a threat. He's a prophecy. Trevak growled. A spark that could destroy our world. The room went silent. If you protect him, Trevak said, you go against the council, against your blood. Lysira's voice was quiet. Then so be it. Trevak's eyes burned, with hatred. You would fall, for one human? No, she said. I would rise for him. That night, Jace stood on the balcony with Lysira. The stars above looked different now, like they knew something was coming. I don't know what's happening, he said. But I'm not afraid. Lysira leaned on the railing beside him. You should be. He turned to her. I don't care if this ends tomorrow. I don't care if it kills me. Being with you, it feels like home. And with that, they kissed. Not gentle, not quiet, but powerful. Honest, soul deep. And in the distance, the ancient beacon, hidden beneath the mountains of Varela, lit up for the first time in 2,000 years, a warning to the galaxy. The bond has begun. They will tear us apart. The silence inside the royal chamber was unnatural, not peaceful, but tense, like the world itself was holding its breath. Princess Lysira stood at the center of the garden dome, her hand still wrapped around Jace's. Morning light shone through the crystal ceiling, but it felt dim, colder, like something had shifted in the air. Jace looked at her with quiet worry. You're shaking. She pulled her hand back slowly. They know. His face darkened. The council? She nodded. Worse, Trevak, he's not just watching, he's planning something. Hours later, far below the palace, in a sealed black chamber lit only by floating orbs, Trevak stood in front of 5 dark-robed figures. Their eyes were covered in cloth. Their skin had been burned by spirit fire long ago. Blood seers, beings, who could drink prophecy and bleed truth. One of them spoke with a hollow voice. The soul link grows stronger. The queen has already started changing. Can it be stopped? Trevak asked, voice low. The tallest seer raised a shaking hand. If you separate them now, her soul will remain untouched. But if they share a moment of true love, if the bond completes, she will fall. And the curse of fire will begin. Then I'll make sure they never get that moment, Trevak hissed. That night, Lysira moved Jace to a new chamber, hidden beneath the roots of the palace itself. It was a place even the council couldn't enter. Not without her blood. She touched the wall and vines moved aside, revealing a glowing sanctuary filled with living crystals and whispering winds. Jace looked around, wide-eyed. This place is alive, he said. It's part of me, she replied. No one else can find you here, not even the council. But even as she said it, her heart knew the truth. Time was running out. She could feel it in her bones. Her immortality was fading. Her senses were changing. The bond was reaching its final phase. And with it, the danger was growing. That same night, deep in the city of Virial, a figure landed in silence. Not from the sky, but from the void, a realm outside space and time. He was tall, cloaked in armor made of bone and black light. His face was hidden, his voice never used. They called him the Void Hunter, a weapon created long ago in secret. Made for one purpose, to destroy soul-linked humans before the bond could complete. He walked through walls like smoke. He followed energy trails no one else could see. And now, he had found a scent. Jace's, and he was getting closer. Back in the sanctuary, Jace placed a hand on Lysira's arm. You're cold, he said. I'm changing, she whispered. I can feel it. Your presence. It's pulling something out of me. I'm becoming like you. Mortal. She nodded. Are you afraid? She met his eyes. Yes. He took a step closer. Then let's run. Let's leave this place. Your people, my people. They'll never let this happen. But maybe we don't need them. She smiled sadly. If we run, the bond still completes. I still lose my power. And the world still reacts. We can't escape it, Jace. We either break the bond or accept the end. He said nothing, then reached up and touched her face. I'd rather have one real day with you than a lifetime without it. Above them, alarms rang through the palace. Red lights pulsed across every hall. The guards ran to formation. Trivax stood in the command room holding an ancient artifact, a tracker designed to detect emotional energy spikes. It glowed bright. They're together, he said. The bond is nearly complete. Prepare to strike. The Void Hunter moved, silently through the tunnels, blade forming from his arm. The walls screamed as he passed, flowers wilted, glass cracked. Even the light turned away from him. He reached the sanctuary entrance and paused. This place was sealed by blood. But he had a secret. He reached into his chest and pulled out a vial, glowing with stolen light. Lysira's blood, taken from a ceremony. Long ago, he poured it over the vines. The wall began to open. Inside, Jace felt a sharp pain in his chest. Something's coming, he said. Something wrong. Lysira's eyes went wide. They've found us. She grabbed his hand and ran, deeper into the sanctuary. The lights dimmed, the air grew colder, and then the wall behind them split open. Not gently, not slowly, but violently. The Void Hunter stepped in, his body surrounded by black fire. Jace froze. The thing in front of him wasn't alive, not fully. It was part machine, part spirit, part nightmare. What is that? Jace asked. A soul killer, Lysira whispered. Sent to break the bond before it's too late. The hunter raised its blade. But before it could strike, Lysira stood in front of Jace. You'll have to kill me first, she said. The blade pulsed with light, and then, a miracle. Jace grabbed her hand, and the bond completed. The moment their hands locked, a wave of light exploded through the chamber. Vines lit up. The walls glowed white. The hunter screamed, its form cracking, breaking, dissolving in light. The force of their joined hearts, pure love and pure sacrifice, destroyed the weapon. But in its place, Lysira collapsed. Her glow faded, her immortality gone. A war for one night, the sky above Varela turned red, not from sunset, but from war. Thousands of watchers stood in silence as a great ring of fire appeared around the capital. The ground shook, the trees bent. A sound filled the air, a deep, painful cry. The cry of a world awakening to betrayal. In the throne tower, High Counselor Trevak stood before the ruling circle, his voice cold and sharp. The bond has completed, he said. Our princess has sacrificed immortality for a human. The balance is broken, we must act, the elders murmured in shock. If she falls, one said, others may follow. Love will become poison. Immortality will become weakness. No, Trevak replied. This is no longer about her. This is about power, control, order. He raised his staff. Bring the judgment storm. Deep beneath the palace, in the sanctuary, of roots and starlight, Jace helped Lysira to her feet. She was weak now. Her skin no longer glowed. Her body, once light and energy, felt heavier, slower, human. But her eyes were alive with more feeling than ever before. You're still here, she whispered. Always, Jace replied. Above them, a sound shook the walls. Drums, ancient drums. War drums. Lysira's breath hitched. They're calling the storm. What is it? Jace asked. She turned toward the tunnel. Something that hasn't happened in 1,000 years. Explain. They're not coming to arrest me, she said. They're coming to destroy me, and you, and everything we've touched. Trivak's forces gathered. Golden ships rose into the sky. Armored guards poured into the palace halls. Spirits of the past, once at peace, were called from their rest. The storm was not just military. It was divine, a punishment meant for gods. In the center of it all, Trivak stood on a floating platform. His staff glowed with cold light. He raised his hand and pointed toward the hidden sanctuary. "Burn it all," he commanded. Lysira and Jace emerged into the moonlight just as the sky tore open. Fire rained down from the heavens, not flames, but purging light, a weapon forged to erase emotion, to wipe love from memory, to burn away bonds. The first wave hit the outer walls. The sanctuary exploded in a column of white mist. Lysira cried out and fell to her knees. Jace pulled her behind a stone barrier as another blast hit nearby. "We can't outrun this," he yelled. She shook her head. "We don't need to run. We need to make them see." "See what?" "That this love is real. That it's worth something." Across the city, thousands gathered. Some watched in silence. Others shouted in fear. But many had tears in their eyes. They had seen Lysira grow. They had seen her kindness, her strength, her loneliness. And now they were seeing something else. Her sacrifice. A young child stepped forward from the crowd and looked up at the fire-filled sky. "Why are they hurting her?" she asked her mother. The mother didn't answer, because even she was starting to doubt. Trivak marched through the halls, his guards behind him, heading straight for the tower where Lysira once ruled. He would take her place. He would remove every trace of the human, rewrite the laws, cleanse the memory. But when he reached the throne, he found it empty. A single flower lay on the seat, a crystal bloom, and next to it, a message carved in old runes. "You cannot kill love." Outside the palace, Jace stood before the golden army with no weapon, only his voice. He shouted, "You call me a threat? I came here by accident. I never asked to fall. But she chose to save me." Some soldiers hesitated. Lysira walked forward beside him. Her steps were weak, but steady. She stood before her people, face pale, body trembling, but eyes strong. "You call this bond a curse," she said. "But what curse teaches kindness? What curse gives hope?" "You fear that I gave up immortality for something weak," she said. "But maybe we were never meant to live forever. Maybe we were meant
to love."
Silence spread. Then one by one some guards dropped their weapons. A young warrior stepped forward and bowed. "Forgive me, princess." But not all were moved. Trivak arrived with his elite force. Dark-cloaked warriors, immune to emotion, raised their blades. "You cannot save him," Trivak said. "This ends now." Lysira stepped in front of Jace. "Then take me," she said. "But only me." Jace grabbed her hand. "No, we do this together." Trivak raised his hand. A spear of energy flew from his palm and struck Jace directly. "In the chest!" Lysira screamed. Jace fell to the ground, eyes wide, breath vanishing. "No!" she cried, holding him. But just as his heartbeat began to fade, a miracle happened. The bond awakened. A light rose from their joined hands. Pure, burning, white. It lifted them off the ground. It pushed back the army. It shattered the sky. Trivak shielded his eyes, screaming. "What is this?" An ancient voice answered. "Not from above, but from within the light. This is love's war, and you have lost." When the light faded, Jace still lay motionless. Lysira held him in silence, tears falling on his face. The people watched. The soldiers knelt, and slowly, Jace's eyes opened. His hand touched her cheek. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "You never will," she said, voice shaking. And for the first time, the people of Varela cheered for a human. Not because he won a battle, but because he proved Love was greater than immortality. The night the stars held still, the battle was over. The palace was silent. The people of Varela stood under the sky. But something had changed. The stars above weren't moving. Not even the moons drifted. The world had paused. Time itself had stopped. For them, for one night. The ancient prophecy had spoken of it only once. If the bond is true, if love is pure, the sky shall freeze, and the universe will hold its breath. Princess Lysira, no longer glowing, no longer immortal, walked barefoot through the garden halls beside Jace. Her hand rested in his. Her heartbeat was soft and slow, but stronger than it had ever been. "Why is everything so quiet?" Jace asked. "Because this night is ours," Lysira said. "Given by the stars, stolen from forever. They passed the glowing rivers that once flowed with spirit water. Now they reflected only moonlight. Flowers leaned toward them, pulsing faintly with energy. Jace looked around. "Your world's holding still for us." She nodded. "But only until dawn." His hand tightened. He wanted to ask, "What happens after dawn?" But he already knew. This moment was borrowed. This love was both a miracle and a goodbye. They reached the crystal shore, the place where the sky met the sea in shining curves. Waves no longer moved. They were frozen mid-splash, like a painting. Jace sat on a smooth stone and pulled her gently down beside him. "I never thought," he whispered, "that someone like you, someone eternal, could ever love someone like me." She leaned into his shoulder. "Eternity never loved me," she said. "Not like you do." They sat in silence for a long time, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken words, shared warmth, and the hum of two souls joined beyond logic or law. On the other side of the world, Trivak sat in chains. His guards had abandoned him. The people had turned. And still, he didn't understand how a single human had undone 1,000 years of order. He looked up at the sky, watching the still stars. "What kind of magic is this?" he hissed. A voice from behind him whispered, "Not magic, love." He turned, but no one was there. Just a glowing mark on the floor, the soul bond symbol. Pulsing once every few seconds, he screamed into the void. Back at the shore, Lysira took Jace's face in her hands. "I want to give you something," she said. "You already gave me everything." "Not everything." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small stone. It was the prophecy crystal, the same one that first glowed when Jace touched it. Now it was fully lit. "This is our bond," she said. "When the night ends, I may forget. I may fade. But this will remember." Jace held it gently. "You think you'll fade?" he asked. "The universe doesn't allow broken rules," she said. "I gave up eternity. It may not let me stay." Jace's throat tightened. "No. Jace. No." He looked at her fierce now. "We didn't come this far to say goodbye. We survived your council. We defeated that soul killer. We faced a war. I'm not letting you go." "Then, hold me," she whispered. So he did. He held her as if the world might break apart, as if holding her could stop time even longer. Hours passed, and then the air shifted, a breeze returned. The stars began to flicker, and in the far edge of the sky, light, dawn. The night was ending. The one night they had fought for, suffered for, was slipping away. Lysira trembled in his arms. "Jace," she said, voice faint. "I feel tired." "Stay with me," he begged. "I want to, more than anything." "Then do it," she smiled weakly. "I don't know if it's my choice anymore." Her skin, once kissed by light, now dimmed like cooling metal. Her breath slowed. Even the air around her began to shimmer. He looked into her eyes. They were still full of love, but also of goodbye. Suddenly, the crystal in his hand cracked. White light poured from it. Jace cried out. But it wasn't pain, it was memory. A flood of her thoughts, her dreams, her voice, her life, rushed into him. I saw you before I ever knew your name. I loved you before I ever touched your hand. And if this is the end, know that it was worth it. He wept as the light faded. Lysira's head rested on his shoulder, silent, still. And then, the sky moved. The stars blinked again. Time had returned, but she hadn't. The world awakened. People stepped out of homes. Flowers bloomed again. Life continued. But one figure sat by the crystal shore, holding the woman who had given up eternity for him. He didn't move, until a soft glow touched his chest. He looked down. The prophecy crystal sparked once more and whispered her voice. Not yet, my love. His eyes widened. Hope returned, because sometimes the bond doesn't end, it waits. And across the stars, something ancient stirred again, preparing one final miracle. The last gift of an immortal heart. The sun rose over Varela with quiet sorrow. Its golden rays touched the crystal forests, the floating cities, the silent palaces, none of them aware of what had been lost beneath the stars. Except one man, Jace. He sat at the edge of the crystal shore holding her, Lysira. Her body no longer glowed, her breathing had stopped. Her skin was cold. Yet somehow, her face was calm, peaceful, like someone dreaming in the arms of someone they trust. Jace hadn't moved all night. His clothes were soaked with dew. His hands were trembling. But the one thing he refused to let go of was the stone she gave him, the bond crystal. He held it against his heart. It pulsed once every few minutes. Not strong, not bright, just steady, like a heartbeat refusing to give up. You promised me, he whispered, voice cracked. You said not yet. A tear fell on the stone. And then, the light pulsed brighter. Across the world, people began to feel strange things. An old blind woman suddenly saw her husband's face again. A child born without voice sang in her sleep. A tree that hadn't bloomed in 100 years burst with golden flowers. Animals grew calm. Rivers ran slower. The wind stopped howling. Something was returning, something ancient. Beneath the palace, in the Hall of Roots, the forgotten spirits awakened. They were the guardians of balance, protectors of fate. Rarely seen, rarely heard. Even the High Council feared them. They only spoke when destiny was being rewritten. Now they stirred. A circle of them surrounded the sacred flame, and one of them, older than time, whispered, "She gave everything. She broke eternity for one moment of love. So, let her love rewrite what death erased." They raised their hands, and the flame rose into the sky. At the crystal shore, Jace stood slowly as the wind around him began to spin. His eyes locked on Lysira's body. The bond crystal began to glow brighter and brighter. And then, it shattered in his palm. The light exploded around him in a perfect ring. Trees bent. Water froze mid-splash. The sky cracked with thunder, and from the light, a single heartbeat. Jace turned. Her fingers moved. "Lysira?" he whispered. Her chest rose slightly. He ran to her side, falling to his knees, clutching her hand. "Lysira, please, stay with me. Don't go. Don't leave me again." Her lips parted. No sound came, just breath, real warm breath. He cried, holding her face. Her eyes fluttered open. Not glowing. Not immortal. Just alive. Human. Real. Herself. "You're here," she whispered. "I never left," he said, his voice shaking with relief and awe. "I heard your voice," she said weakly. "It pulled me back. You made me believe I lost you." He laughed, wiping his eyes. "I was ready to die beside you." "You would've," she whispered. "And that's why I came back." They stayed there holding each other while the sky poured gold, but their story wasn't over. In the sky something cracked open. An ancient structure long sealed, the vault of time, began to shift. It had watched the galaxy since the beginning. It held memories of every soul that ever lived, and every rule that could not be broken. But now it glowed with new light, because for the first time in history, love rewrote fate. The bond had not just linked two souls, it had awakened the galaxy itself. No longer did the stars see humans as short-lived and small. No longer did immortals believe themselves above emotion. Lysira's sacrifice had changed everything. Weeks passed. Jace and Lysira walked through the city together, side by side. She was no longer a goddess. He was no longer a stranger. They were two people in love. People bowed to them, not in worship, but in respect, in understanding. Because for the first time, immortals understood pain, sacrifice, and hope. Children asked for stories of the human who made the stars stop moving. Poets wrote of the night when time stood still. And High Counselor Trivak, now exiled, sat alone in a dark corner of space, screaming at the stars that no longer answered him. In the final scene, Jace and Lysira stood at the hill where it all began. The crash site. He placed a new marker there, made of crystal and steel. It read, "Here fell a stranger. Here rose a bond that changed the stars." Lysira smiled and took his hand. "What now?" she asked. "Now," he said, "we live." They turned and walked down the hill, into the world they helped reshape, with nothing behind them but fire, sacrifice, and an unforgettable truth.